Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Archie Abrams with us. Archie, thanks for coming on the program.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I think we're going to have an exciting talk. You are the Director of Growth at Udemy, is that right?
That is right.
That's cool. Well, tell us real quick, what is Udemy?
So Udemy is the world's largest marketplace for on-demand, high-quality online courses. So we create a platform that enables experts all across the world to create courses in whatever they're experts in. And that allows us to have an entire library of about 7,000 courses. So students who want to learn about web development, come on to Udemy. Find a course on web development. Want to learn about growth hacking? Come on to Udemy. Have a growth hacking course. Want to learn about photography? Come on to Udemy. Find an expert who will teach you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of Udemy as an instructor and as a student. I do both, you know. I woke up this morning with new reviews on my courses, so I go and look at them and see what people are saying, you know. Most people like it, so that's a good thing.
That's awesome, yeah.
Every once in a while somebody doesn't, but that's life.
Yeah.
You know, you can't win them all.
Exactly.
So how long have you been there as the Director of Marketing? Director of Growth, I should say.
Yeah, growth, marketing.
It all blurs.
It does. Been here for about, at this point, almost a year and a half. So joined last January, and it's almost June. It's scary how time goes by.
It really is. So you've been there long enough to really, learn to see how things actually work, to, experience some growth. What kind of growth has Udemy experienced in the last year and a half since you've been there?
So we've been lucky and fortunate to have some pretty incredible growth. At this point, we're at 7,000 courses. We've experienced pretty rapid revenue and student growth. We were fortunate enough in December to raise a $12.5 million Series B round. So that was certainly great validation from the market that we're growing at a very quick rate and continuing to see very strong revenue and student growth, almost at 1 million students. A lot of those paying, which is awesome.
Yeah, in the intro you mentioned it was the largest kind of platform for learning, and I never heard it being called the largest before. So you guys must have grown substantially and outpaced some of the other ones. So that's good.
That's awesome.
So tell me, Archie, what does a typical day look like for you? You come in, you get your cup of coffee, you're the Director of Growth. What do you actually do as a Director of Growth?
It's a good question. I think, one of the things that kind of defines day-to-day life is there really is no typical day.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things you'll find, and I've certainly found, is you're wearing a lot of different hats. The most common theme is really kind of focus, and really focused in on myself and the team on how do we grow every day and making sure that we are doing the right projects and prioritizing correctly. And then whatever it takes to get that done, you figure it out. So some days I'm writing a lot of SQL queries, doing a lot of data analysis. Other days, it's really copywriting or doing email marketing or doing some SEO. But every day is kind of very different, but all kind of centered around the theme of, is this an opportunity that's going to grow us 5, 10x if it works? And making sure we're ruthless about prioritizing correctly.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because you're actually doing the stuff. You're not at such a high level that you just tell the minions what to go do. You're actually in there working on the copywriting, working on the email, working on those kind of things, along with your team, obviously. And, we've had Goggin on the show before, and, the co-founder of Udemy, and he really walked us through initially how Udemy got instructors, how they got students. He talked to us about how he kind of overcame the chicken and the egg problem and to get things off the ground initially. But what I want you to do is to walk us through how you're continuing to grow the user base, how you're continually bringing in new students, new instructors, those kinds of things, because it's a different animal. Getting it started and then continuing that growth, there may be some similarity, but it's a new feat. It's a new set of challenges you have. And I want you to walk us through some of the things that you do. And I noticed on your LinkedIn bio, you kind of have a list of some of the skill sets you possess around growth, right? Yep. So I want to use that as a framework for you to tell me, okay, I'm using this skill and here's how I'm using it in the context of Udemy to grow the user base. So the first one is data analysis, something we talk about a lot on this program. How are you using data analysis in terms of what programs you're using, what data is relevant to you, what are you doing with the data? Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, I think I write a lot of SQL queries. So doing a lot of kind of pretty into our database, looking at, what's actually going on and what's driving our revenue. So just to kind of step back at this point, what kind of the main strategies we're pursuing. We're a marketplace, and ultimately, as we talked about, we have all this supply. And one of the benefits of a marketplace is your ability to scale the supply side of the marketplace faster than anybody else can. So how that boils down to how we go out and acquire users, that means we have a instructor community who's out there, who's willing to promote their content to their audiences because it helps them make more money on the organic Udemy marketplace. You as an instructor, get a lot more students in there, you're going to start showing up in our trending sections, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big growth strategy for us. And how do we know we're getting better at that? I run basically every week, all the time, running cohort analysis. So we're looking up, hey, we signed up an instructor this month. How many new students are they going to bring in that first month? And are we getting better at that over time? So going in, looking at, okay, instructors who came in 5 months ago, after 5 months, how many students have they brought? Let's say it's 100. And then going out and looking at, in the first 3 months of an instructor who signed up 3 months ago, how many users are they bringing? And so really looking at that deep cohort analysis, and then we say, hey, if that's going down, what's the action plan that we can do around it? So in a case of, hey, we're also noticing that the skew, so there's only a few guys who are bringing a lot of this. What we realized kind of 6 months ago, hey, there's really, of our instructors, we're getting a lot of leverage from them, but it's really just the few top guys who are bringing 90% of these students. We have all this other supply. How can we incentivize those guys to go out and do that? And what we realized was a lot of our instructors, they actually don't have communities, existing communities, to go out and to promote to. So they're kind of stuck. We realized was, okay, what are some tactics we can teach instructors to really get them who don't have communities to still promote to their audiences? And what we started to do was we started to tie, they talked about instructor promotion success, the number of students you get, into how successful you're going to be on the marketplace. So we devised in our discovery a trending section. And now if you notice in our Udemy trending section, it's actually only paid courses, but it's just looking at the number of students in those courses, meaning if you go out and get a lot of free students, you're going to trend. So what we taught a lot of our instructors to do is go out to things like Reddit, post a free coupon code, get 1,000 students from that, and you're going to start trending. For the instructor, it's great. They're going to make some more money on the marketplace. For us, we just got that email address, and now we can monetize and market to that user. So it's really about creating that win-win, and really kind of from the understanding that, hey, we really know we need instructors to promote. We're seeing in the cohort analysis that these guys are promoting more and more. Then digging into it even deeper, looking at a distribution of who's promoting and who's not. It's really driven by a few guys. How can we extend the tail so we're driving even more leverage? The top guys, they're going to do it. But again, seeing that tail, saying, hey, let's move that needle up, and that's going to move the business forward.
So you guys are kind of in an interesting situation where you're not only trying to grow your platform, you're trying to teach instructors how to be growth hackers themselves almost. And I've actually seen emails, like you guys will send me an email as an instructor, and it'll actually give me really insightful growth hacks. Like it'll say, one of them was, hey, find someone that's teaching a course related to yours, but not in competition with your course, and you guys can cross-promote each other's courses somehow and build kind of a unity there. And I'm like, that's smart of Udemy, because they're now putting tools into my hand that'll actually help you guys and me as well. So I do see you guys doing that. You mentioned something there really cool. You said not just cohort analysis, but deep cohort analysis. And I think there's a distinction there, because, we've heard a lot about cohort analysis of like, all right, everyone that joined the site in January, here's our revenue for that group, then February, then March, whatever. And we're just looking at revenue usually, or number of users, or churn, one of those high-level things. You guys are actually breaking it down to, hey, let's look at the instructors and how well they're performing at bringing in students as a cohort. And so you're kind of drilling down in that cohort analysis. Is that right?
That's right. And then even, I think one of the things that cohort can be very deceptive at is cohort kind of tells you, the way we look at cohorts, it kind of tells you where your next analysis should be. Meaning, it kind of gives you a framework. Oh, I see that we're really driving more, in this case, more students per instructor in this month. But that doesn't really give you anything to talk about actionable metrics, right? It doesn't really tell you anything. You need to understand, well, there's two hypotheses there. One is on average, or the median, is the median going up? Median number of students the instructors bring in? That would mean that all instructors, there's a rising boat, or is it driven by a skew? Just a few guys at the end were kind of getting lucky. Those guys are driving, again, we found out 90, 80% of the students. Actually, the long tail is where the opportunity for us is. Yep. If we can get every instructor, because right now is bringing one student, two students, get all of them up to 50, 100, 200, that's that's what creates the real lift.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding that and then saying, okay, why aren't those guys promoting? And then it's a lot of customer discovery, right? Why aren't those guys in that tail promoting? Well, maybe they don't have a community. Maybe they don't know how to do it. So then we can provide actionable tips to those guys that take them to the next level.
Yeah, and it's an interesting strategy. We had the guy that led growth at LinkedIn come on,
Yep.
and he talked about that. He said, what he chose to do was double down on the ones bringing in 90% to let them bring in even more. But there's still that long tail of opportunity, and you guys are choosing to go after that long tail and educate them and help them out more. So it's just interesting. Two different strategies, both valid. And you probably want to do both into the day, but
exactly. And what we found is I think almost to clarify, what we found was we had the top guys, we had the right process for that.
Yeah.
So we already had that built out, and there was actually the boundary on that was the number of, let's say, a lot of guys, the size of their email list.
Mm-hmm.
And we already providing kind of very high touch for guys who had email lists, very high touch.
Mm-hmm.
But the boundary was kind of the size of their email list.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't that much more we could do for the 10%. We were already getting pretty much the maximum lift we could there.
Yeah.
And it was really, the function was dependent on either bringing in more of those guys,
mm-hmm.
which we certainly want to do, but then also saying, okay, the other opportunity is to really just raise the boat, because that's where most instructors that come onto the platform
mm-hmm.
don't really have a community. Most people don't have an email list of 50,000 people that they can hit up.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we really, if we want to enable any expert, how do we enable all those guys to go out and grow that?
And when you tell them about things like Reddit, you're allowing them to kind of hijack an audience for a moment to build a list that they don't have, kind of. So no,
exactly.
It's great. One of the other things you mentioned as kind of a skill set is pay-per-click.
Yep.
Obviously just making sure, that the lifetime value of the customer and the cost of customer acquisition all work out and work together. What are you doing with pay-per-click at Udemy? I mean, I don't know how much you can reveal, but I'm sure you can't. But if you can, I would love to know how much you're spending on pay-per-click and where you're spending it and how it's working out. Because as an instructor, I'll be on websites and see an ad for my course on other websites that you guys are buying on my behalf at sometimes. And so I'm just wondering what you've learned with that process and what you're figuring out.
Yeah, sure. So for us, it's interesting. So we have we're a marketplace, and one of the things about a marketplace to talk about is you have an incredible supply. But one of the challenges of supply is, as you know, as an instructor, you have the margin is more to you than to us. And so when you're doing pay-per-click, your gross margin is really important. That's ultimately what determines your LTV.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, when we think about paid acquisition, what we think about it is more how can we leverage paid acquisition in a way that feeds our competitive advantage, which is scale. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we do things like retargeting, that stuff, but we also do a lot of stuff that's going on to AdWords. And because we have a huge SKU, we can create campaigns at very low CPAs mm-hmm. that advertise every single one of our courses and actually take up a lot of traffic that each individual product maybe isn't getting a lot of traffic, but in aggregate, it's getting a lot. And it plays to our competitive advantage, which is we have an incredible scale play. Mm-hmm. So let's go out and let's find how we can leverage that scale. And that means extending very deep, not spending a lot per course, because again, the margin can be an issue, but spending wide as opposed to deep. And that's been very effective. On Facebook and stuff like that, we've got great lift from Facebook, partially because we do some really cool stuff with the Facebook Connect data we get. So about 50% of Udemy users, they come on, they Facebook Connect. And they're actually, when you get that data, you have a lot of data. And so we're running what we call affinity analysis, which is basically look at, let's say anybody who enrolled into your growth hacker course on Udemy, look at all of their common likes and say, okay, these guys all like Facebook platform, they all like TechCrunch, and they all like a random tech blog, Andrew Chen's blog. Uh-huh. Not just a random blog, sure. But they all like Andrew Chen's blog. So we're going to go create a target group that is advertising Bronson's course mm-hmm. just to those people who have similar likes to the people who are already paying for Bronson's course.
Yeah.
And that way we're able to get really targeted ads, and we're do it pretty effectively at scale for the whole SKU in a very systematic and efficient way. Mm-hmm. So again, for us, it's all about that scale play. And I think when you're thinking about PPC, the key thing is what is your competitive advantage? What are you really good at? Mm-hmm. And can you afford to pay? If you have an LTV of $500, you can go out and you just need a few keywords that you really optimize for, and you're all good.
Mm-hmm.
If you have lower LTVs or lower margins, you got to think, how can I scale it? How can I pick up cheap traffic across the board? And that's for us, that's what we've been able to do.
Yeah, that's great. When you talked about leveraging the Facebook data that you guys are getting, light bulbs are going off in my mind as you say that, because I always think, should I do Twitter login, Facebook login, whatever, or just, roll your own kind of stuff. But it's like when it comes down to it, Facebook is the one that gives you a lot of actionable data that then can be rolled back into an ad network. Twitter, not so much. Google Plus, not so much. But Facebook, you really are getting solid data. So it's even making me think, all right, on Growth Hacker TV, should I have a Facebook login? Because then what I can do is I can look at all the people that, become a paying member, like what do they have in common on Facebook? And then I can target people like them. So that's a really cool pay-per-click growth strategy there. I like that a lot. Overall, right now, have you guys hit a stride with pay-per-click where now it's just dumping money in and knowing that it kind of works out for you? Or are you still in the middle of, testing before you really, pour a lot more into it?
Yeah, I think for us, for pay-per-click, it's always going to be, again, the marketplace, you have that incredible supply. So you're going to want to leverage that supply to bring your users. Mm-hmm. And typically, that's instructor promotion, and they'll get into SEO a little bit later on. Mm-hmm. But so pay-per-click for us, we view it as it's not our primary growth channel because, again, our margins are such that we can really have that scale play, but it's tough to really just dump tons and tons in there. Yeah. So it's an effective strategy, but it's definitely our kind of second or third focus as a business.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I asked that because, people don't realize that when you're building a company, there could be 5 things that work, but 1 or 2 that really work, a couple others that kind of work, and then a 5th one that's like, well, it's a net positive, but I'm not going to spend a lot of energy on it, And so it's really a mix that, all these things kind of come together. You mentioned SEO. Let's talk about SEO a little bit. So, on your LinkedIn page, you talk about on-page SEO and off-page SEO. What are you doing and what have you learned at Udemy about SEO?
So it's interesting. So, the biggest thing for SEO, when you look at the guys who really dominate SEO, mm-hmm. the trick I always use to see if somebody's getting a lot of SEO traffic is just do something in Google. You type in site, semicolon, the URL, udemy.com. Mm-hmm. And you look and you see how many pages indexed do those guys have. Uh-huh. Because that will give you a sense of, hey, if you have a lot of pages, you look at all the guys who dominate SEO. Think of Yelp. Think of even Odesk, another marketplace example. Think of Amazon, eBay. Those guys have millions upon millions of pages indexed. And what that gives you is it gives you an incredible long tail traffic that you're basically paying nothing for because your supply is creating all of those pages for you. And that is really how you dominate SEO. The short tail stuff exists, but it's really hard to really, in most verticals, to just live off short tail SEO. Guys, again, who make SEO work, it's all in that long tail, particularly when you're in a consumer-facing business and your LTVs aren't at a B2B SaaS level where those guys, they can get some short tail to work, but if you need a lot of users, it's going to come from that long tail. So in that case, for us, it's all about how can we get our instructors and how can we get our students to create a lot of text content for us. Mm-hmm. That's our game. When we think about SEO, it's how can we create a ton of text content that will allow us to scale the raw number of pages we have indexed, because we know each of those pages will get picked up X amount of times. Yeah. So what we do is we have a little challenge for us because we're a video site, right? And video isn't great for SEO. Exactly. And so and you guys face the Growth Hacker TV video. Google can't know what's going on, so they're not going to index. So what we've done is we've done a few things. One, we've taken that, let's talk about that short tail. So when we get a course in, we SEO optimize that. We have a VA process where they go out and they make sure the title tag, the description has the right keywords, and we see great lift from that. We take every instructor, we just make sure it's perfect SEO. On some of the off-page stuff, we make sure that every instructor is linking to their course landing page. We're getting a lot of press. We're making sure we're getting that off-page stuff. And for us, that kind of takes care of itself because we have, again, the supply as a vested interest in linking to their content. So that helps a lot of the off-page SEO. The big thing in on-page, we're doing that with our VA process. Going forward, again, I talked about we need to scale the amount of text content we have on the site. And So doing a few different things. One is transcriptions.
Yeah,
So right now
ask you about that. Yeah.
Exactly. So the challenge with transcriptions, once you start paying for something, it all comes down to the unit economics, right? And it's just like quick math costs us X amount of dollars per transcribed page, and we get X number of visitors per page. How many visitors sign up, and then from those guys, how much money do they spend?
Yeah.
And so it's very simple, and does that justify the cost on for us, a 3-month, let's say, payback period?
Yeah.
So right now what we're doing is we transcribed quite a few of our lectures and are testing out some of those hypotheses. We have an estimation they can get 5 to 10 visits per page, sign up rate of 20%, et cetera, go into the revenue and see if that works. Then we really can scale out our transcription process.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, that's one way we can really build out our text content. The other way is leveraging our student community more and getting those guys creating, whether that's questions in the courses, whether that's projects. And we're releasing a few things the next few months that will hopefully allow students to more easily create text content that lives on Udemy that, again, we can optimize for SEO.
Yeah, and let me ask you about this too, like the transcription. Will that be behind a paywall or in front of it? And because if it's in front of it, then they can read the course, and then the course is what you're paying for. And so some people won't want to read no matter what, but some will be like, all right, I can read this. And then you're losing on that issue as well. So do you have to wrestle through that as well?
That's a great question. So what we're attempting to do right now is we're linking from the course landing page. If you actually go into it, it's when you click on, so if you look at a Udemy course landing page, it has all of the lectures listed out. So if you click on that, you get a little description of the lecture. But if you actually go into the code, you actually notice there's an href to a kind of hidden lecture-style landing page, which just has the transcription and then 2 minutes of that video lecture. So if it's a paid course, it's only 2 minutes of the lecture, and it's not accessible from somebody not easily accessible from somebody on Udemy. Those pages are only open to SEO and to Google. So you have traffic coming in, and the call to action is actually get the full course, click here, then they go to the landing page, and then from the user, it's a little tricky. They don't know where the rest of the transcribed lectures are. From their perspective, it's just this one lecture transcription.
Okay.
So it's a little tricky, but it's a way of protecting both, it's paid content, they're paying for it, while also getting the SEO benefits from it.
I gotcha. So that's great. I'm glad to ask. So you're using it as a landing page, almost a squeeze page. It's not an extra feature, come read our courses. It would actually be very difficult to come and read the courses if somebody just chose to.
Exactly. The way we think about it is almost like, you can pay for blog posts or you can pay for a transcription. If the transcription works, it's a lot cheaper than having bloggers kind of go out, freelancers write a lot of blog posts. That becomes very, very expensive.
Yeah.
You can basically turn all these video lectures pretty cheap in the text content and make it in a way that it's pretty much, as you said, just a squeeze page that's basically just designed for SEO traffic.
Yeah.
Then you have a pretty big win.
No, that's great. I love that idea. One of the other things that you talk about is viral acquisition. And I'm really interested in this one because I don't know how well it works with Udemy. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that can really, put the viral coefficient in its favor, like something like a free kind of, fun app sort of thing. So I'm assuming you're trying a lot of stuff, but it's not the main thing. How is viral acquisition for you guys?
Yeah, and quite frankly, you're absolutely right. It doesn't move the needle. Yeah. And I think when you think about growth, I think a lot of people think about they hear growth, they think viral acquisition. That's all growth is. That's really not what growth is. That works for a certain type of product with a certain type of competitive advantage. Typically, that's communication tools, social tools, et cetera, et cetera. For Udemy, the core experience isn't social. The product, there's some social learning stuff, but quite frankly, most people come onto Udemy because they want content, they want to learn. And they may tell their friends about it, but they're not going to do it. So we've tested some things, particularly e-commerce, which e-commerce marketplace do a lot with incentivized referrals. So, refer a friend, get $10. We've tried some of those things. They'll have viral coefficients in the 0.2, 0.3 range. Nothing special.
Yeah.
The big thing, though, is when you're thinking about viral, particularly for an e-commerce site, you're really talking about kind of an amplification model of viral. So stepping back, through Facebook, you're going to have a viral coefficient well over 1 because that's the nature of the product. But if you're an e-commerce company, if you can get your viral coefficient up to, let's say, 0.3, 0.4, and then you're paying for traffic, you can reduce your CAC by that amount.
I
And
got
then
you.
all of a sudden you can go out and you can spend a lot more money on paid acquisition. Because all of a sudden you just lowered your CAC, and those other guys that you're competing against, they may not have lowered their CAC, and you can get a lot more volume. So what we've done is things like giveaways, which is actually sounds simple but very effective. You come on, you enter your email address for a chance to win this, and in order to enter it, you have to like us on Facebook and you have to share it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
You do that, you do the viral math on that, you're going to get a viral coefficient of 0.3, 0.4.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's a direct decrease in your CPA or your CAC, whatever you want to call it. You can go ahead and you spend a lot more money on Facebook or AdWords. So when you're thinking about kind of viral acquisition for an e-commerce or marketplace, really be thinking about how does this change my acquisition cost, as opposed to how is this going to be the acquisition strategy that's going to drive the business forward, because quite frankly, it won't.
Yeah.
But it can lower your CAC, which becomes really, really important.
No, that's great insight, because if someone else is just buying AdWords based purely off their lifetime value of the customer, but you come in with that and some sort of viral coefficient, even if it's low, you have an upper hand, even though the lifetime value may be identical, because you did a little extra. So I love that. I think it's great insight. It's funny you mentioned contest. I remember one month you guys were on a contest. It was, for the top instructors, if you sell a bunch, you'll get a hoodie or something, a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let me send out a few emails. So I sent out a few emails, and then I got a hoodie in the mail, and I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So I still got a Udemy hoodie in my closet,
Awesome.
Yeah, so it works, I ended up sending an
Exactly.
email and sold a bunch of courses just because you guys, prodded me with some cheap prize.
Exactly.
So it works,
It works. It's scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting when you're talking about kind of how you incentivize people. And we talk about this kind of going into a little later, but it's unbelievable, just small things. How that can really move the needle for people. For students, that's, hey, we're in a contest right now. That's whoever watches the most content this month wins $1,000 worth of courses.
Yeah.
And you're seeing this is really designed to engage our top users and really kind of show them some love. And it's amazing, guys emailing in, hey, what's my score right now? Like, only a week left. Like, we got to go. And these small things can make actually a world of difference on your engagement and also your acquisition.
Yeah, no, those are great ideas. Now, another thing that you do there is a lot of A/B testing, multivariate testing. I can imagine you're doing a lot of this because you're playing with probably the copywriting, you're playing with the course and just how you structure it and stuff. What kind of A/B tests are you guys running, and how is that working for you? Is that a big piece that you do systematically, or how does that fit into everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. So we have kind of one challenge that we have, and this happens, I think, to a lot of marketplaces, is because the instructors actually, you kind of own that course landing page, there's actually you have to be a little careful about how much A/B testing you do, because you often get people writing in saying, wait a minute, I created it because I thought the landing page looked like this, and now you're telling me it looks like this, and okay, that's not what we want, because that instructor community is so important to us in terms of bringing users and engagement. So where we spend a lot of time with our A/B test is more in email, and because that's a medium we control, and then in general discovery. So right now we're testing a few different search algorithms, so different ways of sorting courses when people search for them. For instance, you can think about search, pretty tough problem. Do you sort by conversion rate? That's one way, just the simplest way of doing it. Hey, highest converting courses, boom. Well, then how do you deal with new courses? How much weight do you give to those guys? And how does that hurt your conversion rate over time? And then also, do you maximize for day one conversion, so just getting people into a course, but then not, some courses are better than others, which leads to different amounts of repurchase rates. So do you actually optimize? Ultimately, you're trying to optimize for LTV. So do you sort more by engagement within a course? We know that drives repurchase rates. So we're testing a few different models for how we rank things in search, and really trying to understand what's the best approach for us. And then within email, doing all sorts of tests, particularly mostly around different types of merchandising of content. So do you put a lot of merchandise, in our case courses, right into the email? Or do you do a lot more that happens just a big button, go discover courses, and drive them to a specific landing page? Timing and frequency, particularly to different user segments. So do a lot of optimization on our welcome flow for email. Because again, if we think about any e-commerce or basically any company, get an email address, the lead is really hot right when they sign up. And what we see is if you don't get somebody to convert in their first 15 days, they're not going to convert.
Yeah.
So you got to be really smart about how you welcome them to the site. And so we do a lot of testing. Some stuff that's really hard, 50% off, 24 hours, get it now, versus a lot softer things like this is why we started Udemy, this is why people are learning on Udemy, et cetera, et cetera. And then wait a few days and then give them the hard urgency with a good offer.
Yeah.
And what we noticed is actually the first one, just straight up, really hard urgency with a good offer. So almost always converts better than anything else you'll ever do.
That was my next question, because I've experienced the exact same thing. There's just nothing like a time limit and a discount. Something about it is magical, right?
It's scary how effective that is.
Yeah.
That's maybe the biggest thing I've learned at Udemy is, hey, you can think you're doing all the things you want, but what people really want is they want the right offer at the right time, and you got to force them to act on it and make that impulse purchase or that purchase right then.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, you almost have to. It's like a false scarcity. Like, look, there's a time limit. Yeah, we created the time limit arbitrarily. It's based on nothing, and the deal will still be there in a couple months if you just wait. But for right now, this is the time limit, and you have to act. And it just does something to people, and they just, it happens to me. I go and buy stuff for the same reasons. So, it's like we're susceptible to it as much as we do it, as a part of our products. Like, it just works.
It works.
That's great. What have you found out in terms of, creating the content in the email as opposed to pushing them back to the site and really digging in there? Have you found that the short emails work or the long ones?
Great question. So what we found is that for new users, it's really important to merchandise and put content in emails. So those guys are kind of unfamiliar with what Udemy is, what they can learn on Udemy. So you got to merchandise a little bit. New users just signs up. Maybe on average, in the first session, a user will look at 2 course landing pages. So they really haven't seen our entire catalog. So what you want to do in that first few emails is merchandise. Show them, hey, we have this web development class, we have a growth hacking class, we have a photography class. We're doing a lot of segmentation, but we got that merchandise in front of them. But then once the user is familiar with the product, has looked around, has been on the site, has logged in a few times, it's all about just getting them back to the site and getting them to explore there and leveraging the power of our merchandising on site to do a lot of the work for us. So it's really, I think that's usually how you'll find it. Guys who are unfamiliar with the product, you got to do a lot more in email. Once they're familiar with the product, you just want to be getting them back to the site and let the site do the work.
Yeah, and do you use the Facebook login data to inform the emails? So these are interest, and so then you put those kind of merchandise in the email? Do you guys do that?
So it's interesting. So what we do for our interest-based, or how we segment people based on interest, is a lot more on the actions they take on the site. So we have a little score that we use. Let's say you come to the site, you look at a course that's in the technology category. You get 1 point for being in the technology category. Let's say you enroll into a free course in the technology category. You get 5 points. So you actually pay for a course in the technology category, you get 9 points. And then you look at it. So let's say you also looked at 3 business courses, 3 design courses. Every night we run just a cron job, ranks everybody's preferences, and then updates their segmentation. So we get that data immediately. You come in, you look at only one technology course landing page in your first visit. We know you're at least somewhat interested in technology, and we use that to inform all of the emails and all the merchandising we're doing.
Gotcha. So that's how you guys know what to put in my emails on the consumer side of things. I'm always wondering, because I look through it and I'm like, I didn't check any preferences, and I don't log in with Facebook. I actually use an email address. So I was like, how are they doing that? And then I thought, I don't think they're tracking it to that degree, but they might be tracking what categories I'm looking at and buying it, and you are, so that's cool. That's awesome. What have you learned about timing on emails in terms of when you send them out? Have you found that certain times and certain days work, or is it just for certain segments you've learned certain things?
Yeah, great question. So I think for us that we've noticed is for guys who are really engaged with the site, most engagement happens during the week. It's a big fall off both in terms of logins and purchases that are happening on the weekend. And that's pretty typical, I think, for most sites. People are away, they're not buying. So the key thing is starting it typically early in the week does better. So Tuesday, and typically around lunchtime. So most of our purchases peak around midday. And think about the use case for Udemy. And what I would say, again, just a little later about kind of educational products. Educational products are fundamentally aspirational products. Most people say, if I only knew more about web development, I could get a better job, I could launch my startup. If I only knew about yoga, I could lose weight or whatever it is.
So they're doing it on their lunch break when they're daydreaming.
Exactly. They're bored at work, and they get an offer that hits their inbox around 11, noon, 1 o'clock. They come over. You know what? I'm really bored at my job. Wouldn't it be great if I did this and they'd make a purchase? So you notice this really, and this is kind of times into how we do timing and then also how we position the emails. It's all about tying into what is the user ultimate, why are they buying these courses?
Yeah.
They're really making an aspirational purchase. And so the timing needs to reflect that, the messaging needs to reflect that, and the impulsivity needs to reflect it. And that's why for us, impulse works well. Because when you're making an aspirational purchase, you're not really doing it rationally. You're doing it because you will feel good about making that purchase. Yeah. And so if you give that urgency, good offer, right time, right messaging, you'll convert really well.
That's such good advice because, there is no one answer to any of these questions.
No.
It depends on the psychology of the people using your product or using your site. And so you have to really learn your user. Where you guys, it's aspirational, it's lunchtime, it's them daydreaming and making a quick purchase with a deal. That may be completely irrelevant for some other product, but it is what you guys need to do. And
exactly.
So the goal is to go back to people watching this and go out and figure out what you need to do based on what you're learning, but use this as a framework on how to think about it.
Exactly. Absolutely. In different types of, for us, that more engagement style emails, so engagement happens at night, not during work. So when we're sending out more engagement, reminders about, hey, take your course, those are going out at night. And because that's when most of the consumption is happening. So again, to your point, really understand, even within your segments, your user base, when are they performing certain actions, and really dial in on that. For us, purchases happen around noon. Engagement happens at night when people come home from work and are now starting to work on this.
Yeah. Talk to us about copywriting a little bit. We talked through copywriting a little bit with A/B stuff and with the email. Is copywriting a big part of what you do, just finding the right words for things?
I wish it was something that I actually, as a kind of learned maybe the hard way, how important copywriting really is. When I first, even a year and a half ago, really thought, hey, copywriting is kind of just not that important. Copywriting really matters. And my advice, it does. And my advice to anybody out there is go learn copywriting. And go learn how to write good copy because it will make the world of difference. Particularly, the thing we try to think about always is make sure you're describing the benefits and what is in it for the customer. Too many people in their copy, and we did this a lot, describe the features. Oh, you can watch the course on demand. Well, what does that mean? Which means you can watch it when you're come home from work. It means you can watch it when you're on the train. It means you can watch it wherever you go, so you can learn whenever you want. And that, in describing those benefits, really makes all the difference. And the other thing about copywriting that we found is simple, direct sentences and calls to actions work better. Stuff like, if people hate it, click here. You tell people what to do, and people do it at a much higher rate than if you're trying to be all fancy and secretive. No. People are they're not taking much time. You hit the benefits, you hit why they should do this, and you give them a very clear, direct call to action that tells people what to do, and that's how you get the most lift. And, something for, I think, kind of people think about is when you're writing copy, you often try to write it, well, would I really like getting this email? Do I feel good about this? And that's actually not the right way to do it because you're so inside the product. You understand it. You get it. You got to really make it simple, and you got to do stuff that maybe at first doesn't quite feel right, but then you notice the results are very, very different and very counterintuitive. The more direct you are, even the harder you are in describing and selling the benefits, the better you'll be.
Yeah, that's great. And for anybody watching, to go back and check out Joanna Weeby's interview, because her whole thing was on copywriting, and I learned so much just doing that interview because I was asking questions that I wanted to know the answer to, and she answered them. I was like, this is great. I'm going to go using all this stuff right now. So we went through a number of things here. We've talked about data analysis, pay-per-click, SEO, viral acquisition, A/B test, email marketing, copywriting, kind of the whole matrix of things that go into growth hacking in a sense. Out of everything that Udemy is currently doing, what's performed best for you guys? If you had to pick one thing on that list that you would not let go of, and you could only pick one, what do you think it might be?
Without question, it'd be email marketing.
Really?
Yes. Email marketing, for us, ultimately, growth is about driving LTV, in our case, an e-commerce marketplace, and in other sites, it's about retention and page views. But if you don't have an ability to reach people who are interested in your product and have expressed interest, you will not be successful. And email drives a huge percentage of our revenue every month.
Yeah, that's great.
Astronomical. And email, ultimately, it's kind of, people don't like to talk about email. It seems kind of passé. Email works. And you try to build your following on Twitter. You try to build it on Facebook. Listen, Facebook clamps down on on their edge rank, on how their newsfeed algorithm. Hey, you're going to lose that. Twitter, same thing. Twitter actually kind of sucks for a lot of e-commerce DM or DR type stuff. Email works. And if you take an email list, I would much prefer to have an email list of 10,000 than just have 100,000 users come to the site, sign up, and then you never email marketing to them. To 10,000 emails that you're really marketing to will always perform better than the 100,000 that you have to your site and you're not emailing at all.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're saying that because, this is one of those things that until you've actually done it, people are confused by what these numbers actually mean, right? So, for instance, on Growth Hacker TV, when they're watching the free video, that little pop-up that stops them, at first I was like, all right, let me have them tweet something out to continue the video. And then I thought, I know too much about Twitter. I'm not going to kid myself. Let me get their email. That's the thing that has long-term value. And so, to give you an example, if somebody really important with, let's say, 50,000 followers, targeted followers on Twitter, they want to blast out a tweet about Growth Hacker TV, it will move the needle just a tiny bit. I'll get a little bit more traffic and maybe a sign up or two. If I send out an email to just a few people, I can do way more. And so people don't realize that a massive Twitter following, it doesn't move the needle like people thinks it will. Same thing for Facebook. But email list, I agree with you 100%. And that's why I'm capturing emails and not something else.
Exactly.
Is there anything that you've tried at Udemy that you just thought for sure would work awesome, and then you do it and it's just like, well, that didn't do anything?
It's a good question. So I think that, for us, the thing that was kind of surprising was actually, as you talked about, a lot of the Twitter and the Facebook stuff. So I'll give you an example. We used to go after instructors with big Twitter followings. And the logic was, hey, these guys have 50,000 Twitter followers. We get them to promote their course. It's going to do magic.
Yeah.
Fact is, didn't do crap. Didn't do anything. And if you think about, and you're always breaking down the kind of just the impressions, you get 50,000 Twitter followers. That goes out in the stream. How many people are actually going to see that?
Exactly.
And you're looking at a few thousand. Of those who are going to click, you're at most going to have a CTR of 1% at most. And so 10,000, it really doesn't, the math never works out.
Yeah.
And so when you break it down like that, you realize Twitter and the social stuff doesn't matter. We used to have a pay for tweet, kind of like you used to have. And the viral on that was 0.05, 0.1. It's kind of like this is a joke relative to actually doing what's core, which is for us capturing email addresses, and then for our instructors finding guys who actually have email lists. That's what's gonna move the needle ultimately. And social again, I'll come back to it. Like Facebook works well if you're paying to promote your posts and you have a really good offer for people who are willing to buy from you. Facebook can be really effective, and we actually get a lot of leverage from our Facebook page, not in the typical do a lot of like us on Facebook. And we used to have posts, so just to back up, when we started going to the yoga vertical, we built a pretty solid Facebook page, and we were getting posts that were getting shared. Basically, some of these posts had about 1,500 shares. We had a post that had 5,000 likes and only 25,000 likes. So pretty ridiculous engagement. The guys who actually came over and signed up from Udemy was basically next to nothing.
Yeah.
Because it was all this engagement stuff, which people talk about, it's good for your brand. No, actually, it doesn't necessarily move the needle, though. What's going to move the needle is going out, giving somebody an offer for a product they want with the right urgency, and that's actually what's going to drive actual dollars and users to your company. So biggest advice is don't waste your time trying to do a lot of soft stuff that just kind of you should do a little of that. You need to have a nice brand, but ultimately what's going to really move the needle is good offer, right price from people who actually want to buy your product.
Yeah.
And that's pretty simple.
Yeah, I hope people are aware of how good the advice you just gave is. I really hope they slow down and think about it, because email marketing, right price, right time, urgency, it is absolute gold. So I just hope people get how important what you just said is. I know it firsthand. That's why I agree so wholeheartedly. I won't do it another way anymore. So
exactly.
It works.
It does.
Let me ask you this. What's on the horizon? What do you want to try that may or may not work, but then you're just like, on a rainy day when I got enough resources, I'm going to try this and see if it moves the needle. Anything you got on the list there?
Yeah, man. So the biggest thing I think is we talked about that SEO strategy. So we're really kind of saying, hey, marketplace model, we have all these content creators, we have a lot of content, but it's video content. Yeah. And if we can turn that into an SEO, really scalable SEO strategy, that's a game changer for us. So we're still in the early stages of testing that out, but if we can get that to work, that's something that we're really excited about doing and going out. The other thing that I think is really important for us is, and what we're focused on as a company is really driving, it's actually going to not sound growthy, but it's really focused on retention and really making sure that we have users who are coming in, who are taking their courses. We're very good at getting somebody to take their first course, but how do you get people to take their second, third, fourth, fifth course and really drive that LTV so you don't have that high churn? So we love going out. We love getting users. I think we have some good things in place to make sure we do that sustainably, but really it's figuring out the SEO, but then also figuring out the retention piece so we're getting people to buy 3, 4, 5, 6 courses as opposed to making 2 impulse purchases and not really engage with the content and therefore going on to be lifelong customers.
Yeah. It's funny. So many people come on here and they're like, we focus on retention, which isn't very growth-oriented, but then everyone says it. So I think it is growth-oriented.
Exactly.
Everyone brings it up. So retention matters as well. It's huge.
Exactly. And just on that point, when you think about ultimately in your business, especially e-commerce metric or marketplace models, it's all about LTV and CAC. And ultimately, LTV isn't just about paid acquisition. LTV is also about SEO. It's also about what you can do with content marketing. Because you can't put out a piece of content that only gets seen by 500 people if your LTV is very, very low. You're not going to be able to justify the time or the expense of creating that content or pursuing an SEO strategy that really is pretty small in volume. So once you get your LTV up, you can do a lot more on paid. We can also do a lot more content marketing. You can do a lot more SEO. You can do a lot more interesting things because you have a lot more value from your customers. So LTV is really, it's obvious, it's essential to growing the business.
Yeah, and retention is what brings that LTV up.
Exactly.
And when that LTV is up, it allows you to try so many other things with so many more resources. But without retention, the entire house of cards falls down.
Exactly. You're done.
Yeah, that's
it. It's it. Seriously.
Absolutely. Now, before coming to Udemy, you actually founded Amplify Teaching. Tell us real quick, what was Amplify Teaching?
Yeah, sure. So our goal is to turn every classroom teacher into a rock star. And when you look at a traditional K through 12 teacher, we're focused in that space. It's really, really hard. And teamed up with a former educator, and we created a tool as an app that allowed teachers to really effectively manage the classroom experience. So if you're a teacher, you're really trying to say, hey, does Bronson understand this topic? Can Archie read? Like trying to keep notes on that. It's really overwhelming. You have 100 kids and you go back to your computer and you're like, ugh, I can't keep track of all this. So if you could take all what they were doing on paper, put that onto an app in an app form and allow them to walk around the classroom, enter that data entry really seamlessly, and then allow them to also pull up data. Hey, Bronson really gets really good at math. Like, give him some extra homework there. That would be a game changer for teachers because they could actually focus on teaching as opposed to keeping track of information. So that was what the product was. We made some pretty big errors. Great learning experience. We raised a little bit of money, and then unfortunately we spent kind of the classic mistake of spending way too much time in product development. And at that point I was doing a lot more product stuff, and we didn't really focus nearly enough on actually getting people to use the product, and more importantly, to pay for the product. A lot of free usage, but I go into dynamics of K through 12 and the sales cycle there, but nobody was paying for it. So when we came time to, hey, we're running out of money, wasn't enough there. I think in hindsight, we spent a lot of time really trying to fine-tuning the product as opposed to going out and selling and hustling and making money.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because that kind of leads to my next question. When you found a company and you are the CEO, you are the guy that has to do everything, answer everything, figure out everything, you get a real good taste of why growth matters, why selling matters, how data analysis and pay-per-click and all this stuff comes into play. Like, you're just right there, right next to the metal, learning all these lessons the hard way. Do you feel like that your experience there, being the founder, has really informed you as the director of growth at Udemy? Has it been a valuable kind of a thing to learn from for you?
Absolutely, it's probably the best experience in terms of going on to be at Udemy, because you realize kind of all pieces of the business and how they all tie together. You're also used to wearing multiple hats, doing a bit of product, doing a bit of data, doing a bit of marketing and sales, and so Udemy kind of can see that and understand that, and also understand ultimately what the business is about growing it, and you can think in just a cleaner way about what actually matters to driving the business forward, which is essential.
No, absolutely. And some of the advice that I give people when they want to learn how to grow something, how to growth hack, whatever you want to call it, I say just go start something. Go start something, watch it fail, and you'll learn something, because it's going to fail. You're going to mess up. It's going to be a disaster in some way, and you're going to learn things that you can read in a book, but it won't stick with you the same way. When you go out there and just watch your money disappear, it's like, I get it.
Exactly. And I think that's absolutely right. Because I think a lot of times on paper, especially if you just read a lot, you watch a lot, it sounds kind of really easy. And then when you actually go out and do it, you realize actually it gets pretty challenging when you actually get in the weeds and you actually understand, hey, it's pretty competitive out there to acquire any customers. There's 1,000 companies who want the same exact customer that you want. And to be able to beat that other person, you got to be innovative. And if you're just copying or just doing everything somebody tells you from a book or something, not going to be successful until you really get in the weeds. You take those lessons and you apply it to your own business, and you figure out, okay, what's make my business unique, and then how can I leverage that to go get more people who want to pay money for my product.
Yeah, absolutely. Archie, this has been an awesome interview. I have just a few last questions for you here.
Yeah.
We've talked about Udemy. We've talked about amplified teaching. You've given us as much tactical advice as anybody possibly could, I think, which has been awesome. Tell me, what's the single best growth hack that you've ever implemented at any point in your life? Just that one thing, maybe it wasn't repeatable, maybe it's not an evergreen strategy that you could build a business off of, but what's something you did when you're like, wow, that really worked?
It's a great question. So I'm actually going to give a little on that. I think the best growth hack is actually staying relentlessly focused on what actually moves the needle. And so it's actually really been about finding out things like, hey, what moves the needle is email marketing and a good offer at the right time, and continually finding ways of getting more of those offers into people's hands in a contextual way. Meaning, you can't just send the same damn offer every time, but figuring out different ways of getting to people's hands. So, for instance, we did this kind of a weird promotion in November. We did the 12 days of Black Friday, and so it's very simple, but and let me tell you, it was for the guys out there. Start at 70% off, and then every day until Black Friday is just a 3% drop, and just a ton of emails about it, ton of hello bars, and it was very simple, nothing special. Everybody does that, but the amount of money it moved for us was pretty astronomical, and so it doesn't necessarily feel great when you're doing that, but it actually really drives and moves revenue. So kind of the growth hack, I would say, is nothing in particular, but just figuring out what really moves the needle for your business and just doing it. And doing it a lot and figuring out ways to do it even more and staying focused on that thing. And it's pretty simple, but that's actually what gets the job done.
No, that's awesome. And I want to make sure people understand what you just talked about with the Black Friday, because it's such a good idea. So there's a discount of, it starts at 80% off or something, right?
Exactly.
And then it goes down by 3% every day. So if I wait a week to buy the course, then I get a much less of a discount. But if I buy it right now, I get the full 80%, and then tomorrow I'm at 77, and go on from there. And so every day that passes, there's this little voice inside of you saying, you should probably do it now. You should probably do it now. And, I watched my sales of my courses go up during that time. And so that's why I knew it was working, just because I could see my own data. And I'm like, wow, that's great. I got to remember this growth hack, because it's working for them and, vicariously for me as well. Now, also, what are some resources you can recommend to us? You obviously have learned a lot. You figured out a lot. You know a lot. Is it from blogs? Is it from reading? Is it just from trial and error? What resources do you really go to learn some of these things?
Absolutely. So, gotta give a shameless pitch, but some good, really awesome Udemy courses. Your course being one of them on growth hacking, Growth Hacker Conference, copywriting course on Udemy. There's a lot of great stuff on Udemy, but then also a lot of great blogs out there. You read Andrew Chen's blog, some other really excellent blogs there. But I think most of what I've learned is really about trial and error. And you can spend all the time you want reading, watching stuff. Quite frankly, at a certain point, you're not going to learn much more. And the only way you're actually going to learn it is by actually trying it and just doing it. And so I think what we've tried to do at Udemy is create a culture on our team is really just go and try stuff and just move as fast as you can to get the results. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. Hey, if there's a few typos in the email, that's okay. You got the results. You see what that is. So go out, try stuff, and really learn by trial and error. That's really the best way to do it. Read some stuff, get some ideas, but then you always have to apply it to your own business, your own unique situation. And that's really the challenge in anything you're doing. So go out, learn stuff, but then ultimately go back and try it.
Yeah. Well, Archie, this has been an incredible interview. Thank you again so much for coming on Growth Hacker TV and for being so transparent. You didn't hold anything back. You really told us what you're doing and how it's working and what you're not doing. And it was just awesome advice. So thank you.
Appreciate it. It's good to be here.